Hi, everybody, and welcome to our very first Long Story Short. My name's Corey Baker. I am the CEO here at the Long Center. And long story short, this is our first episode. It's kind of our fourth stage. It's a way for us to keep connected with all of you, all of our patrons and supporters during the time of COVID-19, and hear more about what artists in our community are doing, what local leaders are doing, and just keep the conversation and the engagement going during these difficult times when it's just so vital to have inspiration from the arts. So we're really excited that you are joining us, and I hope you stay tuned to our social channels and see for upcoming what we have going on. And if I seem a little nervous today, it's because I am. I'm fangirling a little bit about our very first guest on Long Story Short, Gina Chavez. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Good to see you. I was just telling her that She Persisted has been my anthem, my power anthem that gets me out of bed every morning. And so I highly recommend it. If you're not familiar with Gina yet, she's a 12-time Austin Music Award winner, including the 2019 Best Female Vocals and 2015 Musician of the Year. She was Grand Prize winner of the 2014 John Lennon Songwriting Contest. She tours internationally as a cultural ambassador with the U.S. State Department. And she also runs Niñas Arriba, a college fund that she co-founded with her wife for young women in El Salvador that we'll hear a little bit about. So basically, she's a brilliant, talented superwoman, and I'm just so excited to have her on our show this morning. Is it hard to kind of sit through the intro and hear like all the accolades?
It's because I live with myself, and I don't think nearly as highly of myself as that bio sounds.
Well, we're big fans. I have to say, I know we'll probably all end up talking about our moments of what we missed most when we went into shelter in place. And Gina was scheduled to perform in early April at the Long Center's Concert Club. And I remember announcing it last year and being so excited. So it was that, I think that was the hardest thing for me to know I'm missing. But fingers crossed, we'll find a new date and we'll have you there in the future.
It will happen.
Good. That's what I want to hear. So for me, one of the silver linings about this epidemic and what's been going on and the working from home is I find that there's just a different personal connection even to my colleagues. We do Zoom meetings and you get to see into their homes and, meet their dogs and spouses walking through the shot and everything. And so one of the things we noticed at the Long Center is, you were one of the first musicians that we saw that just really quickly started doing these daily live streams. And it's such a personal connection, it seems, with the audience. So can you tell us a little bit about how that decision, kind of how you decided to do that so quickly, what the experience has been like, and if you foresee continuing to do it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you asked that. So I did this piece for the Austin Chronicle where they were checking in with musicians. And so we started live streaming almost immediately. I think it was like the 14th of March was my first live stream. So it was almost right when South by would have been going, right? And so my manager, Louis, he was the one I had thought about, I was like, oh, maybe I should do live streams. And he was like, just do it. Just go live tonight at 8. And I was like, it just seemed like such a weird, like a hard thing. And then we started doing it and I was like, oh, this is super fun. And we had tons of people that were logging on immediately because people weren't doing that yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there was a lot of live streaming at that point. And so it was literally, I'm doing this interview for the Austin Chronicle and they were asking kind of checking up and stuff. And so I went to go see, I had been live streaming 21 days straight and realizing I was exhausted. It was like I was like on a 21-day tour. But in our heads, I don't know if you felt this way, but it's kind of like, oh, I'm sitting at home and like, I shouldn't be tired, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause you're not going out and doing things, but I feel like on some level, our society is also obsessed with being productive. And so I feel like for me, I've been like, oh my God, I have all this time. And like, so I have to be like constantly doing things and you're not ever in the car wasting time or whatever. And so it's like, you're just sitting there, go, 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 go. So I think for me, it was great to live stream. It was really cool to connect with fans, especially early on. but I have realized it's a very different kind of performing. And for somebody who feeds off of an audience, to never get to actually interact with an audience completely drains me. And so I think I'm at the point now where I'm definitely still live streaming, and I'm excited about doing some, kind of more like performances with places like the Long Center, where we can, engage with their audience, and not just be performing to like my own page all the time. And so I think I'm excited about that, and kind of like figuring out all of the technology pieces of live streaming. But it's hard. It's hard for me. I'm the kind of person that if I'm exhausted, I'll get on stage, even if I don't want to. Like, even if my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't want to get on stage tonight. And I love it. Like, I get on stage and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here for this. And I get off stage and I'm super stoked, and like, I have so much energy. But with live streaming, it's not quite the same, because I'm essentially performing to my own face.
Yeah.
You know?
I can imagine. I can imagine that. It's funny because I've had the conversation with a lot of my colleagues that, obviously we believe in live performance, and it kind of that at this time thinking, what makes it so special? We know it's special, but how do you define that? And it's that energy exchange that can only happen. And so, I mean, one, thank you. I can imagine how hard it is for artists, but it's so inspiring to us. So to all the fans out there, send her video messages, leave comments on Facebook, show the love in other ways, because I can imagine how draining that is. So,
well, and I find myself being like, tell me what's going on, write a comment, like something. Cause like, I'm just, I think there's certain people that, shot off as like YouTube stars, years ago. And a lot of those people are actually introverts, and they don't they're good in front of a camera because they don't have to interact with people. Whereas somebody like me, I'm like, I really need someone to like feed even this. Like, this is fun for me because I'm interacting with another human, And it's like, it gives me life, And so anyway, so the whole live streaming thing, like, I learned a lot in 21 days and had a wonderful time, and I definitely want to continue doing it, but it also needs to be something sustainable. And I think that would be my big takeaway for people, is that like, for everyone, no matter what we're all doing, like, it has to be something sustainable, that feeds us,
Absolutely. And, I'm riffing here, but I also, our producer, shout out to Rachel Watkins, who put together this program, long story short. We're winging this. This is the same thing. I mean, it took us a month. You did it on like day one, but kind of figuring out how can we interact. So I would invite you to, this is really just a platform if you want to have a fan interaction or talk to other musicians on this platform. We'd love to have you join us anytime. So let us know. Yeah, we got to all keep talking. And this is going to air on Friday, which is, again, our inaugural. And also the single, Ella, is dropping today, which I am so excited to hear. It's from the forthcoming album, La Que Manda. And it's, well, your last album, Light Beam, was so intimate and deeply personal, and such a beautiful album. Would love to hear about the single and the new album, and kind of what the feel is, what your inspiration was in making the new work.
Sure. Yeah. So La Que Manda has been a bit of a work in progress, but I feel like, and actually it's a work in progress because I'm a work in progress. I feel like we're all works in progress. It's really interesting. It's the story of a woman coming into her own power, but it wasn't something that I intended to write. You know what I mean? That's kind of been my story, especially for the past, I would say maybe 5 to 8 years, but without knowing it. And I feel like there's lots of self-realizations that have happened. And at the same time, understanding that like, as women, there's a universal experience of what it means to be small, of what it means to make ourselves small, to have our voices be squashed. Little boys, they talk about in every culture, this is true, that, little boys, when they speak up, they're called a leader. They're lauded. Whereas little girls, when we speak up, we're told to be quiet. We're called bossy. We're called other names, and that's like a universal experience. And so La Quemanda is really an album that brings those things to light and at the same time says like, you know what, enough is enough. Like I have so much power within me that I've been keeping small, keeping quiet, and it's time to let it out, and so you heard She Persisted, and like that's one of the songs on the album, and it's this anthem. It's meant to be, this moment, sure, that was inspired by Elizabeth Warren, but that's something that is now on signs at rallies, when we're marching through the streets, and something that we can wake up to and say, I got this. Ella is kind of I would call it the prima, which is cousin in Spanish. It's like the Spanish language prima of She Persisted. So it was born, I wanted that same kind of song, but for Latinas. And so it's not the same sonic song at all. It's actually extremely different. But it's I would say it's probably the most like modern contemporary pop song that I've ever written. And at the same time, the message is really powerful. It's like She Persisted, but it's much more intense, and really calls to light a lot of the things that happen in the Latino community. Just in the same way that, I think life for women, like, not to walk certain places at night alone, like, I think that's kind of universal for people, but especially for women. In a lot of countries, women are almost hunted. We're like not safe in our own homes, not safe in the streets. Places like Guatemala have a huge homicide rate against women, especially indigenous women, and things like that. And so this song is really meant to like, it's that same thing for She Persisted, but I would say it's less of a, hey, everything's cool, and more of a like, it's time. Like we have to use our voices, and, we're not giving up for each other. Like we're coming out for each other. So I'm really excited about it. The sound is incredible. I got to record in New York with producers from Venezuela, who are, Grammy and Latin Grammy winners. So it's a real dream come true, and I'm super excited to release it to the world today.
Oh, we're so excited to hear it. And it seems like, it's obviously an important time in general, but with everything going on, it's really striking time to do that. And speaking of empowering women, as I did a little bit of background on you for the interview, I was just so excited to read about the organization that you and your wife co-founded to support young women in El Salvador. We talked about it a little bit in the intro, and it always amazes me when musicians are already creating and putting this awesome art into the world, and then they also have these side projects and what they're doing and what they're passionate about. Obviously, it's very aligned with what you're talking about in AI. So I would love to hear just a little bit about the organization, how you got involved, and especially how our viewers might be able to support your efforts.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's a very long story, and I'm going to try to mimic long story short here.
Okay.
And, my wife and I, this was in 2008 when the recession happened, we ended up going abroad. Essentially, like I had lost my job, and I was like, we've always wanted to do long-term mission work. So we joined with a Catholic volunteer program. My wife and I are actually both Catholic. We met at the University Catholic Center at UT Austin. That's another story. But so we just said, send us somewhere Spanish speaking. They sent us to El Salvador and to Soyapango, which is the heart of the MS-13 gang. This is like their stronghold. If you've heard of La Mara Salvatrucha or MS-13, this is their homeland, right? So it's a very dangerous place. And at the same time, for us, like it was an incredible experience. I've never been so moved by just the amount of love and acceptance that we received from the community, and so we taught English to girls in an all-girls school. We lived at the school with the nuns. We were there for 8 months, and I think again, long story short, is essentially that it felt so wrong for us to just say, okay, our 8 months are done, peace out. We're going back to the first world. Good luck with your life, And so my wife had this idea. She basically said, like, what if we started a college scholarship fund let's just see if they even want to go to college, you know? And so we're in this all girls school. We have this Saturday morning English class of all the seniors. And so we said, hey, you know, who wants to go to college? And everybody raises their hand. And we're like, who's going to college? And everybody lowers their hand. And we were just like, let's talk about that, you know? And so it's, you know, it's money. And by our standards, you know, it's a very affordable education, but by their standards, it's not at all, you know? And so essentially we started this fund, had no idea what we're doing in a lot of senses, still don't know what we're doing, you know, but I think the big takeaway was that we just started, and we started by doing benefit concerts because that's the only way we knew how to raise money. And so what was cool and unexpected was to see how that, you know, melding those two things together, what that did for our fans. And I feel like so many people look forward to those shows that we do every year, especially the ones in Austin. You know, is like, it's this huge celebration. You're doing your, you know, great cause, amazing music, and people just really look forward to those shows for Niñas Arriba. So to date, we have 4 college graduates, 2 students that are now in their sophomore year, and they're going to, I mean, it's an incredible university and in El Salvador, and the scholarships pay for everything. So, you know, it's room and board, food, mentorship, tuition, academics, I mean, everything. And it's pretty incredible to see what happens when you are a champion for somebody, because you know, these young women are doing the hard work, and they come from a place where it's even harder. Like, the gap for them to do this kind of work with their peers is hard. It was really hard. Just the fact that they've graduated and been successful. We never could have imagined that at this point we have 100% success rate. You know what I mean? Like, I thought if somebody only can do 2 years and then has to drop out for a couple, you know, for reasons, that's fine, because education is never lost.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't had that problem, and it's amazing to see what these young women have done. So, and then we also have a paid internship program. So people, once they graduate, they then get a paid internship with this incredible international nonprofit. And then our very first graduate, she actually ended up getting hired on full time by them. So it's been pretty cool. It's been really, really amazing to see these young women. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And you'll have to let us know how we can continue to promote what you're doing and any kind of upcoming events.
For sure. And if people want to find out more, we have shot a couple documentaries, so you can meet some of these, or some of our students. But if you go to ginachavez.com, there's a tab that says College Fund. And so you can find out more about Niñas Arriba and how to help and all that kind of stuff.
Wonderful. I will definitely be doing that. And I know I'm getting notice that we're kind of getting short on time, but one of the last things I just wanted to talk to you is, as a, you know, an iconic Austin musician, being in this town, UT, shout out, you got to do it. How do you think that this is going to, I mean, I've been so inspired by the artists and the music community here, and people banding together, and we certainly have always been on the forefront of the country of creating and supporting our local musicians. How do you think that this is going to change in general, Austin, and what's your hope for post-COVID Austin and the music scene here?
Yeah, you know, I've heard this quote that crisis doesn't change who you are, it exposes who you are. And I feel like, you know, the things that you just mentioned and the ways that we've seen Austin respond, I think show that Austin is a very wonderful and we are going to find ways to help each other. We're going to find ways to do the right thing. You know what I mean? So I think in a lot of ways it is exposing those great things about our, you know, about our community. Mm-hmm. But man, I think I have no idea how this is going to affect us. Even just watching movies where people are like, you know, dancing in a sweaty nightclub, I'm like, like, don't they know? You know, there's like this part of me that's like, oh my God, when are we gonna, like, is life ever gonna be normal again? Like, are we? Because I'm somebody, I love hugs, and like I love a physical, you know, just like being intimate, even just in a space, like being able to be with people, shake someone's hand, hear their story after a show. And so I think I'm so glad we have technology to allow us to still do, have interactions. But man, I don't know what's going to happen as far as like how we come out of this, and especially be safe coming out of this. So
Mhm.
I'm just grateful for technology. I'm grateful for humanity, like the fact that I think we're built on connection. It's something, I don't know if you know who Brene Brown is, but I know it's something she talks about. And little tip, if you've been listening to her new podcast, myself and Carrie Rodriguez wrote the music for it, the theme.
Oh, wow.
So, pro tip, go check out her podcast.
That's
Anyway, she's a wonderful person to be listening to right now as we're going through all this. So she's definitely got a lot of great insights and tips as we navigate this new world of ours. But I do think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny you said that. I was watching, my mom was watching one of the like reposts of a Good Morning America or something, and they were doing a cooking demonstration, and they were like leaning over and testing, and I had the same reaction. And I thought it's kind of like looking at old shows where they're smoking in offices, and you're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh, I hope touching isn't like that in the future. But I know I think more than anything, what I'm hearing too is it just does remind people that live arts are important, are critical to our soul. And I think that, Austinites, we're hungry to get back together, to reconnect with our artists. So hopefully that'll come out in a big way. And we're just so excited to have you back in our house. The second that it's safe to do so, introduce you to our audiences.
I was gonna say that was a really exciting show that dropped off, that we had to postpone or whatever, and so that was a big bummer. I was looking forward to being at the being at the Long Center. So
you will be. We might have to even do it bigger. And I have this image behind me, and now I can just imagine you at the top under the iconic ring beam, to a bunch of people on the lawn that are 6 feet apart or whatever it needs to be. So we will absolutely make it happen. And again, thank you so much for being here. Our first guest, Aya, drops today, the 17th. Check it out, ginachavez.com. And we're also going to get to hear a little bit of your music next. So thank you again so much, Gina. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody be safe and know that you are very important to the arts.
Yes.
Sus manos están atadas, sus no pueden más, no sabe a dónde ir ni qué hacer. Su cuerpo no para de bailar al ritmo de esta realidad. No sabe a dónde ir ni qué hacer. Le quitaron las ganas de hablar, el silencio tratan de comprar. A la fuerza ellos quieren callar. En contra de esto y más, nunca se rindió. Nunca se rindió. Toda la historia, callando la verdad, hemos tenido el poder. Siempre supimos a dónde ir y qué hacer. Le quitaron las ganas de hablar, el silencio tratan de comprar. A la fuerza ellos quieren callar. En contra de eso y más, nunca se rindió. Nunca se rindió. Nunca se rindió. Nunca se rindió. En la calle corremos peligro, en la casa nos matan también. Y si armamos valor para decirlo, hasta la iglesia se calla también. Pero no tenemos tiempo que perder. Fueron muchas las que lucharon ayer, por las que están y las que vendrán. No,